What's up, Green Bay Packers fans? Welcome back, and as always, thank you for joining me. My name is Paul Bretto. Today, we discuss two members of the offensive side of the ball for Green Bay. Romeo Doubs, specifically, not just his production, but when his production happens over the course of these games, and Josh Jacobs, the workload that he's had up to this point, how the Packers have navigated that, and what they're going to do in the coming weeks preparing for the playoffs. But first, you know what to do. Hit like on the video, hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. I greatly appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter at Paul_Bretto. You can find all my work, including article versions of these topics, over at ESPNlacrosse.com. And for my Wisconsin sports radio fans, Packers, Brewers, Bucks, Badgers, download the 105.5 ESPN Lacrosse app for your Wisconsin sports radio needs. You can find me on Sports Lead Monday through Friday, 3 to 6, multiple days per week. So like I said, we're going to talk about Romeo Doubs, when his impact happens, and Josh Jacobs, the workload that he's had up to this point, and what's next in these final regular season games for the Packers. But let's start with Romeo Doubs. In his return, after missing the previous two games with a concussion, in his return against Seattle, he pretty much picked up where he left off. On the stat sheet, we saw him catch 3 of his 5 passes for 40 yards and 2 touchdowns. Again, obviously the touchdowns themselves, massive impact on the game, but I think where Doubs' impact is really felt, along with the production, obviously, is when those catches, when those touchdown receptions occur over the course of the game, and the just additional magnitude impact on the game that the timing of those plays can have over the course of a game. So against Seattle, Green Bay was 2 for 4 in the red zone. A 50% success rate in the red zone over the course of the NFL season. Not going to be very good, but one of their successful red zone visits was a touchdown pass to Romeo Doubs. I believe it was a quick slant in traffic, caught the ball, ran through a defender, found his way into the end zone. A nice tight window throw from Jordan Love, again showcasing the trust that he has in Romeo Doubs to be where he's supposed to be on that given play. And then in quarter 4 was Romeo Doubs' third reception of the game, of course. I think it was that 22-yard touchdown reception. Just a fantastic catch, and it put the game away. Saw those strong hands of his as he made the play in the back of the end zone, got his arm down before going out of bounds. Just a terrific play from Romeo Doubs. So obviously, you catch touchdowns, you're going to have a high impact on the game. And while those are just 2 examples, right? It's one game, 2 examples. Throughout this season, going back to last season, we've seen Doubs continually make plays in these key critical moments, right? In the red zone, on third downs, end of game situations. These must-have-it situations where a 12-yard reception on 3rd and 8, carries a little bit more weight throughout the course of a game than a 12-yard reception on 1st and 10, right? Just given the magnitude of that circumstance. If it's an incomplete pass on 1st and 10, you still got 2 more downs to pick up the first down. If you come through with that reception on 3rd and 10, pick up the first down, it's a fresh set of downs. The offense now stays on the field versus having to punt. Again, there's different context around when these plays happen. And again, the examples just given, they're touchdowns, always going to carry a massive impact, obviously. But that performance from Romeo Doubs was a microcosm of kind of the impact that he has on this offense throughout the season. He's been a big part of the Packers' ability to pick up first downs, to stay on the field over the course of this season. According to Pro Football Focus, Doubs has 37 receptions this season. 27 of those 37 catches have picked up first downs. That's the most on this Packers team, even with Doubs missing roughly 2.5 games, right? Exited the 49ers game early, missed the Dolphins game, missed the Detroit game. He still leads the team in first down receptions. Again, 27 of his 37 receptions have gone for first downs. On third down specifically, he's 11 for 16 when targeted, catching 11 passes. That's almost a 70% catch rate. He's averaging 18.3 yards per catch on those third down receptions. It's a massive amount. And of those 11 receptions, 10 of them have picked up first downs. Let's go to the red zone. In the red zone, Doubs has been targeted 10 times this season, has 7 receptions, 5 of which have picked up first downs, kept the offense on the field. 3 of those receptions have been for touchdowns. And Josh Jacobs said recently he calls Romeo Doubs Spider-Man just because he catches everything that's in his vicinity. Now let's go to late game situations. Again, we mentioned the touchdown reception against Seattle, right? That put the game away. Packers, they were in an offensive lull during that second half. Defense, the pass rush, Edgerrin Cooper did a good job of not letting Seattle close that lead. I don't think Seattle ever got within 10 points of the Packers, but they were still always within striking distance until that touchdown for Doubs, right? That touchdown reception by Romeo Doubs from Jordan Love put the game away at that point. Let's go back to the Houston game. On that final drive, Jordan Love connected with Romeo Doubs on 2 plays, second of which put the Packers in field goal range for Brandon McManus to kick the eventual game winner. Let's go to week 2 against Indianapolis. Again, a game the Packers were without Jordan Love. Obviously a heavy run performance that game, with Malik Willis making his Packers debut, having only been in Green Bay for a few weeks. In the fourth quarter, again, a game where the Packers didn't pass very much, Romeo Doubs had a 39-yard reception, and then he had another 15-yard reception on a separate drive. And both of those plays put the Packers in field goal range in a game where points were very much at a premium. They had 16 in total. That put the Packers in position to kick those field goals, again, in a game that was relatively low scoring, a game where the Packers didn't pass the ball all that much. So, first downs, third downs, red zone, end of game situations. Romeo Doubs is consistently coming through in those key, pivotal, must-have-it situations. And Matt LaFleur has talked about this. Jason Vrabel, Packers passing game coordinator, has talked about this. There isn't anyone on this team, and I think in some instances, referencing their entire coaching career, who they've been around, who spends more time preparing before practice, who spends more time on the jugs machine catching passes than what Romeo Doubs does. The play that we see on Sunday is backed up by all of the additional hard work, reps that he puts into it throughout the week. And one of the strengths of this Packers offense is obviously their pass catching options, right? They have so many different skill sets, so many different players that opposing defenses have to account for. You can't just double team Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson, because that's going to leave Jayden Reed or Romeo Doubs, for example. If you're doubling Christian Watson, that's going to put them in one-on-one matchups. It forces the defense to spread out. It forces the defense to defend the entire field, because the ball with Jordan Love and how he spreads the ball around so well, the read, the play dictates where the ball goes. The defense has to be prepared for the ball to go to any part of the field, really in any moment. That's one of the big strengths of this Packers team. There is their strength in numbers at the receiver position. Then you can factor in the tight ends, all of that stuff. But for all the reasons we just mentioned, even though that is a big part of this Packers offense, and again, we see Jayden Reed, Christian Watson, Tucker Kraft, Dontavian Wicks in some instances, we see all these players coming through in these moments, right? It's not only as if it's Romeo Doubs in the red zone or Romeo Doubs on third down, but more often than not, in these, again, critical, key situations, it's Romeo Doubs who is getting the ball in these instances. And we can look at the Detroit game when Doubs wasn't on the field. His presence was very, very much missed in that game against a team that was blitzing Green Bay very, very frequently, against an aggressive Lions secondary that runs a lot of man coverage. Having Doubs' presence on the field would have been really, really valuable for Green Bay, because of his ability as a route runner. He wins his routes really quickly because of his strong hands, his reliable hands, because just the trust, the continuity that's there between him and Love knowing exactly where Romeo is supposed to be in a given second in a given situation and putting the ball on that spot. Against those more aggressive, blitz-heavy man coverage defenses, that skill set becomes at a much greater premium. And then this past week against Seattle, again, a press man heavy secondary with what has been a very good pass rush this season, especially over the last month. We saw the added value that Romeo Doubs brings against those specific type of defenses in that game, and how he came through in those critical moments. Again, his ability to win really quickly as a route runner, winning at all levels of the field, being where he needs to be, his strong hands. There is a trust there in those critical moments between him and Love to give him the ball, because so often, again, as all those numbers we went through, showcased his ability to come through in those critical moments. So on paper, Doubs has 37 receptions this season, 523 yards, 14.1 yards per catch, 4 touchdowns. A very, very nice season that he's put together. And again, because of all the pass catching options the Packers have, and then they obviously have the running game with Josh Jacobs, this is a difficult offense to go out and have a huge season in as a pass catcher, right? Because the ball's getting spread around so much. So those numbers on their own, especially in comparison to the rest of the NFL, the top receivers in the game, those numbers aren't going to leap off the page. But when Romeo Doubs is putting up these numbers within the context of the game, when he's making these receptions, I think that's where his true impact on this offense is felt. Again, for all the reasons just mentioned, in these must-have-it situations, Romeo Doubs is often coming through. All right, now let's talk about Josh Jacobs and the obvious heavy workload that he's had for the Packers this season. And do the Packers alter that, general game plan that they've had, especially out of the bye week, where Josh Jacobs each week has been a big, big factor within the Packers offense in terms of just number of carries, number of overall touches, with the postseason on the horizon, and the Packers not a lock at this point, but they're going to be in the playoffs. Do they, over these last few weeks, be more mindful to make sure that Josh Jacobs is at his, at full capacity, as much as a running back can be this time of the year, when the playoffs roll around? Through 14 games this season, Jacobs has carried the ball 265 times. That's the third most among running backs this season. If you combine his receptions, which he has 31 of, he has almost 300 touches this season. He's been on the field for 589 snaps. Now, for Josh Jacobs, this is an uncharted territory. During his 2022 season with Las Vegas, all-pro year, he had 340 carries, was on the field for over 800 snaps in that game. Now, while the path that he's on currently, again, 240 carries, almost 300 touches, closing in on 600 snaps, so 3 games to go, this path he's on, like I said, is an uncharted territory for him, but he's venturing towards different depths than when he's generally been. He's on pace to have the second most carries in a season over his career. He's on pace to have the second most snaps in his career within a single season. Again, only season where he's had more of those is the 2022 year, is all pro year. So it's not pushing the limits of where he's been, but we're coming up against that mark this season. So how have the Packers managed that workload up to this point to make sure that they're maximizing, how he's feeling and his availability and how many carries he can handle on Sundays? Well, there's a number of factors that come into this equation. One, and we all know Josh Jacobs has the ability to make defenders miss. He has the second most missed tackles forced among running backs in football this season. However, he's a very physical runner too, right? Like, a lot of his rushes are between the tackles where hits are going to happen, right? And that's just a prerequisite of playing running back, the running back position. You're going to get hit. But what Jacobs does is he talked about this at his locker on Thursday, I believe, is he does his best to minimize the effects of those impacts on a consistent basis. And what I mean by that is altering the angle at which he's going to get tackled. And I think the best way I can try to put this, to simplify it, is if we thought about 2 cars going in the same direction and crashing head on, right? It's going to be a pretty impactful crash, right? They're both going in the same direction, picking up speed, and they run into each other. However, if one of the cars is going in reverse and the other car is pursuing it and then ends up hitting it, that impact isn't going to be nearly as strong as if they were both going head to head. And it's because the momentum of both the vehicles are going in the same direction, so the impact is going to be mitigated. It's kind of a similar thought process when it comes to Jacobs in the running game, right? If a defender is coming from his right side and he realizes he's about to get hit, he flows with the defender to mitigate the level of the impact. And again, doing that once or twice over the course of a game, probably not going to add up, but if done consistently over the course of the season, done over 265 rush attempts that he's had, that can add up, and that can, again, help mitigate the wear and tear that's on Jacobs at this point in the season. The other part about it from the Packers perspective is the offensive line, right? Their ability to go out and execute so Jacobs isn't getting hit right away in the backfield. Matt LaFleur talked about how he needs to make sure he's dialing up the right plays for Jacobs to put him in a position to be successful so he can operate in space, so he can make defenders miss, so he can utilize that tackling strategy, so he can get out of bounds in some instances if it works out that way. And Jacobs' preparation for Sundays begins the Sunday prior, right? Game ends, the focus then shifts quickly to his rehab, right? Getting his body back as quickly as possible, what he eats throughout the week, what his workout regimen is throughout the week to put him in the best position to be available and take on a full workload the following Sunday. And another big part of that equation is the communication between Josh Jacobs, Ben Simmons, the running back coach, trainers, Matt LaFleur, on a daily basis. Checking in, how you feeling? What do we, monitoring what his workload in each practice is throughout the week. Because Ben Simmons, again, the running back coach, said if you let Josh Jacobs, he would take every single rep, every single practice. That's just the mentality that he brings to the table. That's who he is. He wants to be heavily involved in this offense, and not just on Sundays. He wants to be out there with his teammates on the practice field for every single rep. So being mindful of his workload in practices throughout the week, knowing that if he misses some reps on the practice field, they're going to have their walkthroughs where he can still go through the process, the game plan of what the Packers want to run that week. And of course, when it comes to the preparation, the work in the meeting rooms, watching film, all that stuff, there's obviously, the Packers know Josh Jacobs is going to do everything in his ability to be absolutely prepared in that regard. So again, that gives them a little additional flexibility to maybe say, all right, let's go a little bit lighter at practice this week in preparation to make sure you're at full capacity for Sunday. So again, there's a lot of factors that, and I know these are just a few, I'm sure there's many, many others out there on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis to make sure that Josh Jacobs is, again, at his best for Sunday. But those are some of the key factors that, again, over the course of the season, you add all those up on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, that adds up, especially when you're getting as many carries as Josh Jacobs is. Since the bye week, and I alluded to this at the start, he's been the catalyst for this Packers offense. His ability on the run game, the offense's ability to lean on him has opened up the entire playbook for the Packers offense. When you're operating from those short down and distance situations, you're head of the sticks, forces the defense to spread out, creates opportunities in the passing game. Jacobs in the run game has been the catalyst for this Packers offense. And in the grand scheme of the NFC playoff picture, Green Bay's positioned really as well as they can be right now. They're 10-4. They're pretty well locked into where they're going to fall, right? Because it would take a lot to happen for them to get to win the NFC title, the NFC North division title this season, and get a 1 or 2 seed. So that's probably not in play anymore. So they're pretty well locked into the 6th seed, given where they stand. However, in terms of how are they going to handle these 3 games that they have left, nothing is a lock at this point. They still have to go out and win on Monday night in order to clinch a playoff spot in general. There still is the opportunity, while catching the Detroit Lions for the division title, especially with Detroit having the tiebreakers probably not in the picture. There still is a path to catch Minnesota if Detroit ends up winning the division, to catch Minnesota for potentially the 5th seed in the NFC, right? So there's still things that are out there that the Packers are chasing. And so I think for that reason, at least for the time being, at least going into Monday's game, because really this is a week-to-week decision at this point, right? Depending on when they clinch a playoff spot, when they lock into, all right, this is what our seed is. But right now, there's still a lot out there for them that they're still chasing. And so as long as they're still chasing something, I think we're going to see a pretty similar workload for Josh Jacobs, where he's, again, going to be fairly heavily featured in this offense because, again, nothing is set in stone yet for this Packers team. There's still things that they have to accomplish. Now, once those things are accomplished, if they go into week 18 and they're locked into the 6th seed, for example, they're probably going to sit Josh Jacobs that week or give him very, very minimal workload. But until they get to that point, I think we're going to see them operating business as usual for what it's been this season. All right, my friends, if you made it this far in the video, you might as well hit like, you might as well hit subscribe on the channel. I do greatly appreciate it. As I said at the start, find all my work over at ESPNLacrosse.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Paul_Brettel. Download the 1055 ESPN Lacrosse app. And until next time, friends, take care.